Win big in 2021 with RotoBaller.com's MMA Premium Pass. Are you ready to dominate? RotoBaller's Premium DFS package includes exclusive tools, DFS cheat sheets, research stations, our lineup optimizer, and so much more to help you win big. For a limited time, get your MMA Premium Pass for 50% off. Act on that quick because I'm not sure on the expiration date once again. Use my promo code Knuckler, KNUCKLER, one who throws knuckleballs, for an additional 10% discount. So just visit rotoballer.com/radio, sign up today, and start rotoballing like a boss. And what's up, everybody? This is Brady Grove with another interlude episode of RotoBaller's Tap That, the official MMA podcast of RotoBaller. With me today is Devon the Dream Lozej. Devon, how you doing today?
I'm good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing solid. Devon, this has been a pretty long break in between your last fight as compared to, the way those first four fights, went off in real quick succession.
Yeah. So it was it's going to be 18 months come August 15th. Obviously, because of COVID, I did have a fight lined up in May of last year, 2020, and then COVID came in March, shut everything down, as everyone knows. And then, just kind of been on the sidelines, been training, waiting, trying to finalize things. I was expected to do one more amateur fight. And then at this point, I'm prepared to be a professional. So, we're making the next jump August 15th.
So was it a little bit tougher for fighters in Canada to get fights during COVID?
It was, yeah. Even as an amateur in Canada, there's not as much fights as there is in the US. In the US, there's promotions happening every weekend. You could fight every weekend if you wanted, obviously if the commissions are going to allow it. In Canada, it's a little bit differently. And then definitely with COVID too, we were still suffering some of the repercussions of COVID up until just a couple of weeks ago. The gym that I train at has just opened up within a week ago. And we've been shut down the entire time. So I was down in the US training for a while because there was nowhere to train.
Now, are you still with Leading Edge MMA?
Yeah, Leading Edge is where I started, and that's where I'll finish. But I do do some affiliation with other gyms, go out, get different training, sparring, and stuff like that. But Leading Edge MMA is where I train.
So, I know you have the two Matts as your coaches, Matt. I want to say Richard, but I have
Richer.
Yeah, there we go. Matt Richer and Matt Veal are your coaches. Yeah. You have some other teammates that have resumes of their own.
Yeah.
So what do you think are some, things about Leading Edge in particular, unique that, give you an advantage through training there?
So what I believe is, we are definitely a smaller gym, like in our city here in Thunder Bay. It's a solid gym, and we've produced solid fighters. Matt Veal fought in Bellator, was a very good professional, went all over the place and fought. Being a smaller gym is I've been to the bigger gyms. I've been to TriStar, Rufus Sport. The good thing about being at a small gym is I get a lot more work tailored towards just me when I have a fight, right? Everything's about me. My coaches focus on me. I got sparring partners for me. I'm grappling with guys. I can get fresh guys, everything I need tailored towards me. Where when you're at a bigger gym, it's kind of there's a lot of big dogs there. So it's the coaches only have so many resources to put out throughout all their fighters. And with me, it's I'm the one that's fighting. So all the resources come to me. So that's great. And, it's just it's a good atmosphere at our gym. Everyone's great here. So I love it.
Yeah. With what you said about the coaching and the training resources, I think, sometimes that seems to be the difference between training for a fight and preparing for a fight and being trained as a training partner for somebody else, if they have them in mind.
Yeah, for sure.
So is that gym located in Thunder Bay, Ontario?
Yeah, it's in Thunder Bay, Ontario here. Yeah.
I gotta be honest. I seeing that you were fighting out of Thunder Bay, Ontario. I did a bit of research on Thunder Bay. It is there's some fascinating quips about it.
Yeah, no, Thunder Bay is a beautiful place. We're right on Lake Superior here. A lot of people don't I guess anytime I talk to Americans or even people that have never been, aren't from Ontario, they're always like, what is that? Is that a water park? What's Thunder Bay? But it's a beautiful little city.
It sounds kind of like a water park.
It sounds like, I've heard guys say that. They're like, is that a water park? I'm like, well, no, I don't live at a water park, but it's just right on Lake Superior here. It's beautiful, great outdoors. It's kind of, I grew up in a small town called Dryden, which is a couple 100 kilometers, I guess if you're American, miles away from here. And it's a really small town of 10,000 people. So Thunder Bay is kind of that mix of, I think we got about 110,000, 120,000 people here. So it's kind of got like, you got a mall, MMA gyms, all that stuff that a big city has, but still has that kind of small town feel. A lot of the people here, you see the same people at the gym, at the grocery store, stuff like that. And then obviously camp is a 5-10 minute drive away and you're right on the lake, stuff like that. So yeah, I love Thunder Bay, and the people that live here do too.
So for people that don't know yet, your first four fights of the 4 fights of your amateur career, they were all Warrior Games. They all came within a 9-month period in 2019, and 4 finishes in that time. Those all took place in 3 of them took place in Bayfield, Wisconsin, the other in Ashland, Wisconsin. I assume that, like, where Thunder Bay is located, geography has always been it might be my greatest weakness. Visually locating where things are. So I imagine you're in pretty close proximity to both Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yeah. The funny thing is, so where I was fighting in Bayfield is on Lake Superior as well. So it's basically just a drive through. We're in Thunder Bay, 45 minutes from the U.S. border. And then you enter right into Minnesota. You drive through a few hours, and then you hit northern Wisconsin, and then right on the lake there. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, for me, it felt like home territory. I'm like, this is Lake Superior. This is my lake. So going down there to fight, I was fighting a lot of guys weren't even from there. They were coming from other states. So for me, I felt at home down there in a weird way. But
that's interesting, because am I wrong, or is Edmonton like real far away?
It is. Edmonton is, Edmonton's a few provinces away. It's a while away.
That's crazy, that you say that you kind of felt like you were in home territory, fighting along that lake. And then this is going to be your first fight in Canada, your pro debut at BTC 11 in Edmonton. And it's super far away. Does it feel like, a little less home territory, or is it going to be, cool to fight in front of a Canadian crowd?
Yeah, it's going to be nice to be in front of a Canadian crowd. Obviously, I've always wanted to fight in Canada professionally. And BTC was one of the organizations that, like, when I was visualizing my path, I had them in mind, because they're from Ontario, and they're moving the promotion out there because of COVID, and then they'll be returning to Ontario at the end of the year. So for me, it doesn't really matter. I think my opponent's from Calgary or somewhere around closer, so he'll probably have that advantage of being like a guy from Alberta. But for me, it doesn't make a difference. Canada, US, doesn't matter where we fight. I'm comfortable with wherever.
I'll tell you, I have been to Edmonton actually in the summer. Thank God, because apparently the downtown wind chill gets to like -60 or something insane. But Edmonton was a pretty cool city actually. It was like a way different city than like I was used to being in.
Yeah, no, Edmonton's cool. There's it's a beautiful city. I haven't been there in a while. I've been there when I was a kid, but yeah, we going back, baby.
So your opponent on August 15th is Alberta Atma.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because he's got a 5-2 amateur record. I believe he has 2 decision losses. One was a UD, one was a split decision.
Yeah.
His wins were about 3 by KO, TKO, 1 by split decision, 1 by submission. All of his fights were at featherweight. This fight is going to be taking place at 145 pounds. All 4 of your amateur fights were at bantamweight. So was this just an opportunity that...
So this one is at bantamweight.
Oh, okay. It says on Topology, it has it as a featherweight fight.
No. It's 135.
Okay. Well, all right. People at Topology, get on that, because that was my next That was at least the next three things I was going to say, but now we have a new topic.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I signed for is 135. So that's what I believe. I believe the fight's at. So I believe he's dropping down. That was what I was told.
So that is still, interesting just in the reverse. So do you feel really at home then at 135?
Yeah, I do. I don't cut a lot of weight. 135. I grew up wrestling. I went through brutal weight cuts, and the matter of the fact is that they always it always affects your performance. You're never going to perform better by cutting more weight. I mean, you're going to have an advantage in size, but I don't have a crazy weight cut. I come in fresh. My cardio is great. So yeah, I feel at home there. I'm not sure. I don't even care. I like what he weighs, what he's going to cut to. I'm just completely focused on me. And that's it. So for him, yeah, maybe he's was a smaller featherweight as an amateur. I know a lot of guys that fought as an amateur and didn't cut as much weight and then they moved down. So it didn't seem irregular to me. I just said, all right.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. I guess this is what, because now I'm readjusting to the fact that this is going to be a bantamweight fight.
Yeah.
So let's say you did fight at a different weight class at some point in the future. Do you think it'd be more realistic for that to be 145 or 125?
Well, 125 probably, because I know I can make 125. I just don't want to suffer down, like, to make it down there and risk having a bad performance, So yeah, it'd probably be more realistic to go to 25, but I mean, maybe in the future, 45, who knows? We'll see. But I feel at home at 135. That's the weight class that is best for me. So I definitely see myself there for a long time.
Okay, so what, if anything, do you really know about your opponent, Albara Atma?
I don't really know that much, to be honest. Like, when I first got like, my management came to me with the fight, I was immediately like, yeah, sure. Like, they sent the Tapology, but I don't know. I looked at it and I was like, okay. It didn't matter if the record was 5-2, 50-0. It didn't matter what the record was. It's not going to change my mind. I just said, all right, send the contract. Let's go. So for me, there's not really much to know. My coaches are doing that, taking a look, and obviously we're putting some stuff into training. But for me, the opponent doesn't really matter. It could switch the week of, and it's not going to change anything. I'm just focused on myself, my training, and what I'm going to do, not what he's good at, what he's bad at, so that's just my approach. I'm not going to sit here and think about him every day, blah, blah, blah. I'm just focusing on my training. It's already exhausting enough training 2-3 times a day. I don't got time to think about this guy.
So there wasn't a lot of footage available on, your first 4 opponents. And, I couldn't find, I watched the fight breakdown you did of the fight with Bryn Heathcock. And I saw a wrestling match you did for Team Lakehead, I believe. Back in 2012. That was all I could find. But, it seems like, based on what I've seen of your fighting style, you're well-rounded, with probably your biggest strength being your ability to control and ground and pound. That's been your most of your opponent's undoing. And you adjust throughout the fight. I definitely saw that in the Heathcock fight, because he was a bit of an unpredictable striker, and you really had to keep your eye out for him.
He was switching stances and.
Yeah. Do you think it's almost better that, you don't know as much about your opponent going into it?
I feel that too. I think the best fighters in the world, and that's something that I want to be, can adjust to anybody at any time, whether he comes out and shoots right away, or he lies on his back and wants to play jiu-jitsu, or he wants to strike. I think I could adjust to anything. So that's why I don't really care what he's doing. And because he could have done one thing all of his fights, and he can come do something new on August 15th. So for me, it's about adjusting and using a smart fight IQ to beat these guys. And that's what I've always done. Like, people always say, oh yeah, you come out and you wrestle and control and ground and pound, but it's like, I make it look easy because I'm adjusting to it and I make smart decisions. And when, even in my last amateur fight, that I was beating the guy on the feet, I believe. And then my coach just said, let's put him down. And I was thinking right in the corner, I was thinking the same thing, because he was switching stances, throwing haymakers. And that's just unpredictable. So I'm like, let's just put him on his back and change it up. And then he couldn't survive down there. So.
Well, if that was a 3-round fight, that's one thing. But I think it was clear as it went into, the third and fourth that he was slowing down, and eventually, I mean, he wasn't doing a lot. He was defending and he was doing his best to cover up, but that was really it at that point. And, you were still at the same level you were at in previous rounds.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like how the Islam Makhachev Thiago Moises fight just played out. It's like in a 5-round fight, when you have the ability to take people down and beat them up consistently, that is a huge that causes way more decay than some other styles. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, it's probably like anyone that's trained, even just watching fights or been in the gym, that's the worst way. Like, for me, it's like if someone's gonna come in and do that to me and just break me down over 5 rounds, I'd rather get knocked out in 10 seconds than have that happen, because that takes a part of you that you never get back when someone does that to you. You see it happen to some of the best fighters in the world. They're never the same after some of those beatdowns that these guys put on them. And it comes from that tough style of grappling, ground and pound, just top level control where it's like you feel like you're drowning in there. So, I think that's my style, and it's the worst style to put on people.
So I know that your main background is wrestling, but can you go into a little further detail about that? Like what is the fuller body of your wrestling experience?
So I wrestled 4 years in high school, just competing all over, big tournaments, stuff like that. And then I wrestled 3 years at Lakehead University competing as well. And then, basically I started wrestling because I wanted to fight. I always wanted to fight. I grew up in a small town. There was no MMA there. There was a wrestling team though. And I was watching UFC back in the day, Matt Hughes, all these guys, like when I was 12 years old, and they were wrestlers. I looked up to them and I'm like, all right, well, wrestling, clearly I'm going to need that if I'm going to fight. So I started wrestling, fell in love with that for a while. And that was part of the journey for a while, 7 years. And then once that was done, I moved on I went straight to Leading Edge MMA, started training, doing jiu-jitsu, boxing, sparring boxing, kickboxing, everything, and just starting putting it together, and I was patient too. Like I didn't try to jump in there right away. I knew that you need a lot of skills, and I wouldn't have went in there if I wasn't well-rounded, even though I still believe I could have beat a lot of guys just with wrestling. But, I wanted to be well-rounded. So I took years to perfect the craft, not perfect, but work on the craft. I'm still trying to perfect it. And and then here we are now fighting.
Okay. Yeah. Because you're 28 years old.
Yeah.
And you've only been fighting for 2 years, you packed all your 4 amateur fights in a real tight space. I guess, good thing you did, because you had no idea that you wouldn't be able to fight in 2020.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I was like, especially as an amateur too, like, some of my last 2 ones were title fights. So you're fighting 5 rounds. The 3-minute rounds is like, once you put work in for so long, it's like, it's not, I could go fight 3-minute rounds every weekend. So I was just trying to get as many fights as I can. The promotion that I was with was just booking me. Like every show, they're like, yeah, we'll find someone. And I was like, boom, 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 boom. And that's the way I wanted to. And if it wasn't for COVID, I probably would have had 2 more amateur fights and probably already a couple pro fights. But, this is the way it goes. It is what it is. I'm not going to, I'm not like for me, it was honestly a blessing, COVID, because I got to, work on a lot of my weaknesses that I had that you don't really get to do. Because when I was in fight camps, it was just basically, all right, this guy's good at this. Let's stop that. Let's work on this. And, I got to sit back and just, learn new skills, work with my coaches, build things that I needed to work on, stuff like that you don't really get to do while you're training specifically for a fight. Like even for this fight now, it's kind of, I'm just pushing hard and it's a little bit more specific, but a couple months ago, I was just working on everything, whatever I felt like I needed to. So that was definitely a good thing, I believe.
So, okay, where was I going with, I had a thought while you were, so it's going to be your opponent's professional debut as well.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Okay. I know what I was going to say. The thing about the Brent Heathcock fight that I was really impressed by both fighters in the fight was that going into round 4,
Yeah.
Especially when you get to some regional promotions, you see people gas halfway through the second. And to
Yeah.
both of your credit, and to him too, he had a frenetic pace, and he's real unpredictable, uses a lot of movement, and
Yeah.
he did not look to be in terrible shape going into the
No.
fourth. You guys held up really well.
Yeah. No. Yeah, for sure. And that's the way, like, if you're training for a fight, you better be in shape. That's the one thing, like at our gym here, that's the one big thing my coach has always been in. Like, we come in shape and you make weight, because those are things you can control. I can control coming in fantastic shape. I can't control what my opponent's going to do. I could try to control him during the fight, but I can't control his skills and what he's going to throw. But coming in out of shape, that's on you. If you come in and you gas out, that's on you, and you have to live with that. So, where the gym we come from, we come in shape and we come to fight every single time.
And that, like, having championship round experience, so early in your career, that it's such a big hurdle to get over, because some guys, I'm sure fight for 10 years, especially on regional promotions, where some guys, start off knocking out the first 8 guys in 10 seconds. That's a big hurdle to get to, is going into that and keeping your composure and staying strong.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I've been dying to fight 5-minute rounds. Like, I feel like it's beneficial to me, and my style of being in good shape, being able to push, because I know, if I'm tired at the end of the first round because we pushed hard, I know my opponent's going to be twice as tired. And, that gives me confidence, even when you're sitting on that stool and you're, everyone, we're tired, you're sucking wind, but you're like, I pushed hard, and how good of shape you're in and how hard you pushed in camp. There's no way the other guy's not tired. So for me, 5 minutes is great. Like, I wish the rounds were 10 minutes, to be honest. Like, the longer, the better, because we're going to find out who wants this more and who's willing to push when there's no rounds, no time limit, none like that.
And when you fight, you're really active, across the board, wherever the fight's taking place. And having that level of conditioning, has to encourage, that level of activity, because I'm imagining like a video game health bar, and the other guys is going down way quicker.
Yeah, exactly. If you see that, it's like you play the UFC video game, you see that thing sliding down, you start mashing some buttons and throwing some shit, right? Because you're trying to get that motherfucker out of there. So it's just like that in a video game, and that's part of having a good fight IQ. If you see the guy starting to slow down and it's real, and even if you're tired, that's the time to step on the gas. And guys, you see it in a lot of fights, especially amateur. Guys are too afraid to get tired. And this is a sport where you have to get tired. You can't be afraid to get tired. If you're afraid to get tired, go do something else, because you're going to be tired. But when guys start to slow down and you have them hurt, not even just hurt, you just get them tired, that's when you got to step on the gas and you could put guys away. And that's why I finish people, is because whether it's the path of least resistance and I could take you somewhere where you can't survive, or I could just step on the gas when you have nothing left. Either way is fine with me. And a lot of guys, I just don't think are willing to do that, or they're scared of, what if I gas out? It is what it is.
And that's probably an interesting detail about the fact that, between COVID and the time between your wrestling career and when your amateur career started, that's almost like 6 years that you've had to dedicate to getting in shape and being as well-rounded as possible.
Yeah, for sure. It's only a benefit, like, and age is experience too. These guys always talk about fights, whatever. Like, my opponent's got more, if you want to look on paper, experience, but I've been alive longer. I've been training longer. I've been working more. What's that? That's experience in my mind, like.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely agree. There's different layers to experience.
Yeah.
And some experiences do more for others than others do. One thing I will say about your opponent, he's taken 3 fights to decision. He won a split decision and he lost a split decision. Now, what that tells me from a surface view is that this guy is either in a lot of close fights, comparatively speaking, or he's good at making fights close or seem close, So I feel like, the conditioning is definitely going to play a factor, because it's very possible that this is going to go the distance.
Yeah. Well, no, this ain't going to the distance. He wants it to go to the distance. he's praying it goes the distance, so he could try to sneak out a decision. But no, this one's not going to decision. I can guarantee that. And like I don't like. Yeah,
I'm sold.
Yeah, that's what I believe. I'm like, I don't know, what is he hoping? Like, I hope his mentality is not like, oh, I hope I win, but who wants to win by decision when you could finish someone? So if he's trying to go to the decision, then good for him. But I sure as fuck ain't. Can I swear on here? Sorry.
Yeah. For sure. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm not going to censor anybody. I want to hear exactly what you think, because now I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this fight plays out, because the confidence is infectious. I'm feeling this fight. So we had mentioned earlier there will be a pay-per-view stream for BTC 11. So all right, somebody is wondering whether they should order this pay-per-view stream to see you fight. Why is it going to be worth it? Why are they going to get bang for their buck out of that purchase?
Well, I don't know. If you love violence and you want to see people get hurt, tune in, because that's what I'm going to do on August 15th. Use the code BTC10, go to btcfight.ca and watch. I'm sure that they haven't announced the full card yet, but as it comes through, I'm sure BTC's putting on great fights. And yeah, even my fight itself is worth the $25-$35 it is. So tune in, find out.
Oh, for sure. BTC, is in an era where we're seeing so many high quality feeder promotions. BTC is definitely a recognizable promotion that, when you see people have, gone there and survived in an organization like that, it puts them on a certain level. And, it's very interesting because we've seen, a pretty big slew of Canadian prospects, coming out of a wide range of feeder promotions lately. Because I know someone I had on the show a few months ago, Jasmine Jesuda-Vicious, who'll be on the Contender Series in, I believe, September. She was going to Pennsylvania to fight during COVID, and it just worked out. With Cage Fury, but there's been a lot of Canadian prospects showing up lately, and they come in waves, from different places, but it seems like this is a really good era for Canada.
Yeah, there's a lot of people coming up, man. Like Canada's, all these countries, the Russians, everywhere. And as MMA explodes, more people are training mixed martial arts from a young age, and it's only going to make the sport better. It's going to make it more competitive, and things aren't going to get easier from here. Becoming a UFC champion these days is one of the toughest things you could do. And so, I'm excited for this journey and the next 7-8 years of fighting in my life. And I'm excited to be a Canadian prospect too. Like you got GSP, Roy McDonald, all these guys that came years in front of us. And then I feel like, like you said, comes in waves. There was a time where there wasn't really anyone, and now you're starting to see the rise again. And I'm trying to be a part of that.
And MMA is so popular in Canada. And, it's so fun when the wave of, Canadian prospects come, because those Canadian crowds are so good. And it's such a good mixture of, rowdiness and like intelligence in watching the fight. Sometimes, American crowds can be a little too on the like boo if someone goes for a takedown side. And then, some of the crowds out east are maybe, a little too quiet sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Canadians just, we just like a good old fashioned fight. So, and people are, like you said, educated on fighting. They love the ground game. We support our own two Canadians, but if you've seen some of those crowds, like they'll go crazy for anyone. As long as you could fight, like the crowd's going to love you. If you're in a wild fight or you got a good style, people love you. So
for Warrior Games, every single, I assume that this might be incorrect too, because every single fight is listed as tournament championship. So all 4 of them are listed as title bouts. And was that the case?
No, well, so the promotion I was fighting for basically was like they did tournament style, where it's like it would be like a bracket, you'd fight and then the winners would move on. That kind of was the case, but there was a lot of guys pulling out, so I would just have new opponents. So wasn't really like that. Like when I started with the promotion, they basically told me you win 2 fights, you'll get a title shot. That's what I did. So that basically was it. So they kind of did have a format, but with the amount of amateurs pulling out, not even showing up to the fights, like they were just replacing guys like that. So I just fought
Not showing up.
Yeah. There was
that's horrible.
Guys not showing up, being late to weigh-ins, all this kind of stuff, pulling out the last minute. So
in a sport where opportunities are so important, it's always frustrating to see someone, pass on one.
Yeah, it is true. But a lot of people, I think, like the idea of being a fighter, but they don't actually, when it's time to fight, they don't want to go in and do it. But they like the idea of, your friends texting you, people, everything that comes with it is what they want, but they don't want to actually get in there and fight and do the dirty work. So that's the way I see it. When some of these guys don't show up or pull out of fights, is they're in love with the idea, not the business of fighting.
Okay, so you won the bantamweight title for Warrior Games with the round 3 Darce choke over Shad Walter.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense now. I wasn't sure, because I was like, did they do like a one-night tournament? I was like, I checked like 3 times. I was like, no, this was spread throughout the year.
Yeah, it was spread throughout the year.
Okay, and it's funny you said the thing about wanting to be fighters but not really being about it. Do you watch The Ultimate Fighter?
I do, yeah. I grew up. I love The Ultimate Fighter, so.
I'm following the current season, and I'm also currently going back on UFC Fight Pass and watching the oldest, starting with the first, and I'm in the third now. And isn't it crazy that every single season, there's always one dude that does all the work to get on the Ultimate Fighter, goes there, and then they get there and they're like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm about this."
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Take a night and think about it, man.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's just that pressure that gets to you, like the pressure of the training, the pressure of having to fight these guys back to back. And the Ultimate Fighter is no joke, like these guys, people don't realize how close they have to fight and keep making weight. So it's like, if you're a big guy for your weight class and you're cutting all the way down, both going back up and doing that shit drains you. So I can't say I really understand, because I wouldn't toss up an opportunity like that, but I could see how it breaks these guys down. And there's always going to be one guy who just can't do it anymore.
Well, I also believe that some guys are really good fighters and they might be hard workers, but having to live in a house with all of your teammates and your opponents in that period of time is just so insane. And it's such a great twist for, reality TV. But it's different than the Contender Series. The Contender Series is not the kind of mental test that
no.
The Ultimate Fighter is the Contender Series mixed with the Stanford Prison Experiment. And it's why, when a guy wins the Ultimate Fighter, it really says a lot about them, because not only did they beat all of the other guys identified as, the top prospects at that weight, but they stayed focused the entire time and won the mental game as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I guess that's where they coined the name, the Ultimate Fighter. I've always kind of, when I've thought about it in my mind, I'm like, wait, the name seems kind of weird, because I'm like, the guy that wins that isn't the Ultimate Fighter. He's just a guy that gets a UFC contract now. The Ultimate Fighter is the champions in their weight. So it's but in terms of television, it's a great show. It's so entertaining, especially if you fight or love fighting, because you get to really see these guys behind the scenes, see them interact, see their personalities. So it's a good show.
Yeah, who are some of the guys on this season in either of the weight classes that stand out the most to you?
For me, this one, there was some of the names. I don't know. There was a lot of just interesting guys. I kind of the thing that turned me on to this one was just because there was bantamweights, so I just kind of wanted to watch. And honestly, right now I'm a few episodes behind. I was watching it just on my Fight Pass as well. I think I watched the first 5 or 6. I don't know what they're at now. I just seen Team Ortega won 4 straight, and then I watched 1 or 2 of Team Volk winning. But I was just tuning in mainly for the bantamweights, just to see the level of these guys. I love scouting like realistic competition, you know, like everyone wants to watch the UFC and be like, oh, these are the guys I want to fight. But for me right now, the guys in front of me are these guys with the records that are 3-0, 4-1, things like that. So I was just tuning in to see kind of what their skill level's at and just see what these guys are bringing to the table. I don't really know any of their names off the top of my head, but for me, it's more of a just seeing the competition.
Yeah, and like, it's crazy going back to the early seasons and watching this one because like the fighters do now come in like so much more prepared, and they have realistic expectations about what it would take for them to be in the UFC and have a career there. I think that was definitely lacking, in 2004, 2005. Guys are just much more professional now. But, I'm not a reality TV guy at all. But The Ultimate Fighter is like golden reality TV. Every season, it's like, on this episode of The Ultimate Fighter, Julian gets mad at Kenny because he can't find his wheatgrass. And he's like, where's my wheatgrass, bro? Where's my wheatgrass? And it's like, why do I like watching this?
It's pretty crazy. I feel like the older seasons were definitely more wild. Like you would see these guys like getting hammered before
Chris
their fights,
Lieben.
and they're getting drunk and blacking out, and I'm like, as if they let them even I guess it's for TV, but why are these fighters even drinking? They got to fight. And like it was crazy back then. It was crazy. And I feel like now it's just they're kind of moving towards promoting the sport of MMA on like a grand scheme. So it's like they don't want them to seem like animals. They want to show like, oh, these guys are people, they have personalities, they have families, loved ones, all this stuff. So I think there's definitely a shift. It's still entertaining because you get to see them fight, train, all that stuff, but it's definitely different now, but probably for the better.
Well, and a big difference, I think, is, when Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner, fought in the finale of season 1, it was, I win this, I get a UFC contract. If I lose this, I go back home and I go back to the job that I took time off, and I probably won't get to fight anymore. That was where the sport was at. Now, guys come into the Ultimate Fighter and into the Contender Series and make their UFC debuts on, almost every single Saturday that we see. They have, big social media followings. They've been on UFC Fight Pass on some of those promotions. And not only that, the UFC is not their only option. There's, Bellator 1, PFL. There's at least 4 or 5, and then, include Invicta for women. There's, 5 really high quality MMA promotions out there. And so, guys have their own individual brands now, and it doesn't have to be in the UFC.
Yeah, for sure. There's like, the sport's blowing up, and like, I've just seen the numbers. I've watched a little bit of ONE FC, but like from what I hear is like, in terms of over there, like that, it's almost as big as the UFC, or if not bigger in their market there, like the amount of views they get on the fights there. So as things open, like as they start expanding across the world, Bellator is even big now, but hey, for sure change the name Bellator. Like, what does that even mean? I think if Bellator rebranded the name, they could be more successful. Because anytime I tell someone I'm watching Bellator, they're like, what the hell is that? Like, it doesn't even sound like, what is a Bellator? I don't even know what that is, but I think they need to change that.
Devon, I've never, ever thought about that. I never once thought, what does Bellator mean? And now that you brought it up, I'm gonna lose sleep over this.
Yeah, they got to change it to something, like, change it to something that, like, is more marketable, or something that people know, like, Ultimate Fight, UFC, people know, obviously, because it's big. But if you hear like One Fighting Championships, you know exactly what it is. Okay, it's a fighting organization. But when people hear the word Bellator, they're like, what is that? What is a Bellator?
Here's what I'll say about Bellator. Okay. I'm somebody that, I'll have 3 screens up, or, 3 different tabs up of different streams going on. And I want to watch as much MMA as possible when it's on. And Bellator makes it about as hard as you possibly can. I want to watch. I love that they have rankings now. I think they have some really interesting divisions. I always want to watch it. And, they used to have their events in malls. Ben Askren was defending that title like in the middle of a strip mall or something. And, now they're the second biggest promotion in the, arguably second.
Yeah.
And, they do not, it's like they want people, it's like their events are a secret. Like you can easily be a dedicated, informed MMA fan and can completely miss because I liked when they were doing like Fridays or when they were doing Thursday, it wasn't competing with anything. And they keep switching it up. And I really want to watch Bellator, and I think Scott Coker, in many ways, for what he does, is a genius. And so, some of the tournaments he's put together, but I think Strikeforce was way better marketed even in its era than Bellator is now.
It is for sure. Yeah. Like, Bellator is good too. I think they got to stick to the Thursday, Friday, because you can't compete with the UFC on Saturdays. And I just, like I mentioned before, I think it's more the name thing. I have nothing against Bellator. Not that I wouldn't fight there. I'll watch Bellator, but I sure as hell ain't having someone over to my house to watch Bellator. That's for sure.
It's like funny because Bellator, some of their champions, at some points, definitely not all of them, but you take some of their champions and compare them to whoever is the current UFC champion. There's several that I say, well, I don't know for sure I think they maybe could win that fight. They have some really high quality champions, but it's just funny because for how good that organization and how far they've come, so quickly, that everybody who's coming up says, I mean, the goal is to get to the UFC. I would fight in Bellator, if that opportunity was there. So it's like, well, we have all these feeder promotions. That's like the AAA baseball of MMA. And then Bellator is like the Minnesota Twins. And then, the UFC is the Dodgers.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's the big league, just like in any other sport. Like, it's the big show, and that's why people want to go there. And but I mean, some people just want to make money. They're talented, they're good at it, so they'll go to Bellator. I hear they pay pretty decent for some of the top guys. So, I mean, that's good. But
yeah, it seems like a lot of people get opportunities with Bellator depending on where they're doing shows live. I knew someone that used to coach at a gym I trained at in Northern Kentucky that he fought when Bellator came to like Ohio. I think he fought on the prelims. And, so you get to see a lot of the different, local styles and competition levels, when they move around. So it's cool to see. We see people make their professional debuts in Bellator, which is nuts.
That's what's kind of crazy for me that I've always seen is they're letting guys do that. And it's, for me as a business, it's kind of risky because if those guys are, not good fighters, it doesn't look good for your promotion to have them fighting and people watch that. So for me, Bellator, I mean, it's good. It's good to give these people opportunities, but at the same time, if you're trying to be the top organization like UFC, it's like you can't be having guys make their pro debut in your quote unquote big league promotion. But I guess they must know what they're doing. Probably sounds like I hate Bellator, like they did something to me, but it's just, for me, it's just the name.
I think we're being objectively critical.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, we both would want nothing more than for Bellator to be just as high quality as the UFC.
Yeah. Like if they were, I think they should do crossover. If they could get that done, have guys from UFC
I would love
fight
it.
Guys in Bellator.
There was kind of that era where there was talk of when Askren might come over but then Eddie Alvarez came over, Hector Lombard came over. There was a little bit, but the real thing was at that point, Bellator didn't really have Ben Askren was the only one. And then, Eddie Alvarez a little later were the only ones where that was a realistic question.
Yeah, for sure. And look what Eddie came to the UFC and did. So it's not that these guys aren't at the level. I just think the UFC has more depth in the weight classes. If you look at the top 15
for sure.
of each, like the depth isn't even comparable. Like maybe the champion competes in the top 10, but the guy number 2 through 20, people either don't even know their name or they just wouldn't be able to compete. So there's only one promotion you want to go to, obviously, if you're looking to be the highest level, and that's the UFC.
Yeah, another thing about Bellator at a time when the women's featherweight division was there was talks of it just completely disappearing from the sport in a
Yeah.
little bit. They still have been able to maintain a competitive division there, and a
Hmm.
lot of the people that make those pro debuts at Bellator.
Yeah.
They're willing to give those shots to some people with pro kickboxing experience
Yeah.
or really high quality wrestling experience,
Yeah.
and I think something like that paid off really well for PFL with, Kayla
Yeah.
Harrison and Clarissa Shields.
For sure. Yeah. PFL's blowing up in my opinion. Like, yeah, PFL's great. Like, they're blowing up too, but it's still the same thing with Bellator where they have some people with not enough fights yet that are like, I think they're just jumping right into it and ruining potentially great pro careers because they're getting matched with people with way more fights than them and they're losing right off the bat. And, it's not their fault. They're a fighter. You're going to take whatever you can get, especially a good opportunity on a good show. Right. So.
Yeah. Like there was a lesson to Bellator because PFL came up quick, it went from not being, being pretty obscure to,
Yeah.
having all these, sports gambling site partnerships
Yeah.
and, being really featured on ESPN. And it was a lesson to Bellator. Again, PFL did not rise because of the former UFC fighter big names that they signed.
Yeah.
They came up because Kayla Harrison has really surprisingly blown up, and then Clarissa Shields, threw gas on that fire. And there was that era where Bellator was having that heavyweight tournament with like Chael Sonnen and Rampage and King Mo, and it was just super goofy.
Yeah, it's kind of goofy, and I hate to go back to it, but it's the name, honestly. PFL will probably be bigger because people, if you tell, so, I'm watching PFL. Oh, what's that? Professional Fighters League. Oh, okay.
Winner gets $1 million.
Yeah, there's like, PFL's doing it right and makes sense. It's just Bellator. Come on, let's change the name. We got to get some type of petition going for them to change the name.
So when did you sign with Dodge Sports? That was pretty recent, right?
That was recent. That was June, I believe.
Okay, so really recent. How did that come to be? I know that like in the past, from what I've heard, fighters have said that, Dodge Sports reached out to them.
Yeah, so for me, I messaged my current manager now. I just reached out to them because like I don't know who followed, like one of them followed me on Instagram and I kind of just was like checking out their page and I was like, okay, Dodge Sports, and it just kind of rang a bell because I seen like Aaron Jeffrey, who's a Canadian, Jasmine, who you mentioned before, being represented by them. And I was trying to look for a pro fight myself. Promotions don't even want to talk to you. I'm just sending them an email saying like, hey, I'm ready to fight, kind of thing. And they're like, yeah, we'll get back to you. And I mean, at some point I'm going to have to get management representation anyways, and it's not going to hurt me, right? It's only going to help.
Some of those local promoters.
Oh yeah, they're dodging. They're taking care of their guys, right? So the local guys they're trying to get them fights they could win. So I don't know all the behind the scenes stuff that's going on, but yeah, basically I reached out. We just set up a talk. Things kind of move fast, and then now here we are, and I'm happy to be with them. They're great. I love everyone there, and yeah, they got me a fight quick. Like, I asked for something. I said August would work, and then look at us, boom, middle of August.
Oh, it is crazy because I've had a number of Dodge Sports clients on the show. And, they've got Aaron Phillips from Alaska that was on this season of The Ultimate Fighter. Jasmine and Aaron are going to be on the Contender Series. Including those fighters and a good number of the rest of the roster have been on UFC Fight Pass. It seems like they really understand, what it takes to get, to build a career. They're picking the right spots and they're coming through for their clients.
Yeah, for sure. That's all, like pretty much all you could ask, is like they work hard on their end so that we could go in the gym and work our asses off and get shit done, and they get the fights done, take care of all that kind of stuff. So, they're great. If you're looking for management and you're a fighter out there that has potential, reach out.
Yeah, it's not just that they're, good at finding opportunities. It's that, the fighters then in those opportunities have been pulling through, I think, because they have a really good eye for talent, it seems.
Yeah. You know, they're not going to sign nobody. That's for sure. You know, like it does as a business or marketing agency, anything like that. It doesn't make any sense to, you know, sign someone that doesn't have talent or something. It's an investment at the end of the day. So, you know.
So I assume that you know, watch most, if not all, UFC events throughout the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So who are some fighters over the past year that have really like caught your eye and have been either the most fun to watch or you've been the most impressed with?
Been impressed with lately. So let me see some of the guys that caught Ilya Taporia. I love that guy.
Oh yeah.
I think his style's great. Like that guy is someone to watch, especially at featherweight too. Like after, and especially after what he just did to Ryan Hall, he's super impressive. I mean, there's a lot of guys coming up that like, let me see. I do obviously I lean towards the lighter weight classes. But no, I love the grappling styles like Islam Makhachev. Like after his performance last weekend,
My
guys,
lord.
that guy's gonna be a champion, and like his
He's
style is
scary.
like scary. Guys
And
do not want to
someone's
fight
gonna
him.
have to fight him now. Now it's
Yeah,
undeniable. He's gonna get one of those bigger name opponents. Someone's gonna have to do it. And I don't know if they're not gonna want that fight in the first place. You
yeah. I
know,
think the only one that's gonna take it is probably Beneil Dariush will take that fight. I think.
That's we actually me and my co-host on the when we were making our main card picks this week said that I think Beneil makes the most sense, and I think
Yeah,
it makes the most sense probably to the UFC. I think
yeah,
with Islam not being as big of a draw and there it being a weight class full of big money draws, I think they
yeah.
probably see a Beneil matchup as where they lose the least money but still get what they need out of that fight.
Yeah, what they need to do is they need to put that fight together because both those guys are top guys, but need a big win and they need spotlight. So put them as like a co-main event when Poirier and Oliveira fight, so people can kind of see like, oh damn, that guy's Makhachev's a monster. I want to see him fight the winner, kind of thing. Like they're doing it with all these, like they put Sean O'Malley on all these cards with Connor to promote him, and he's not even fighting top level guys. So it's like put the guys that are in the UFC for a while, beating these top guys, give them a shot on these big cards as opposed to these free ones that happen every weekend, so that they can, so it makes sense for them to fight for the title and it would pay off. So
yeah, it's the nature of the beast, and I don't think that'll
yeah,
ever go away.
yeah,
Look at how long George Sotiropoulos or John Fitt. Look at the win streaks
yeah,
they put together.
yeah,
Before they even got a sniff.
yeah,
I mean, we see it with Leon Edwards now. There's nothing that will ever prevent that. And
yeah,
it was, especially with the way things have shaken out at the top of that lightweight class, you knew that somebody was going to get screwed. Somebody's
yeah,
going to get left out of this.
yeah,
And, so I think the UFC is kind of relieved that Conor
yeah,
McGregor lost to Dustin Poirier, because now it makes that matchup a lot easier. You probably go with,
yeah,
him versus Tony, or, that probably makes the most sense right now.
yeah, for sure. And that's just it's the way. It's funny how things always play out with fighting. It's such a crazy sport, and just the timeline of the events, guys getting injured, big wins, all this. Like there's some scenarios that like I still just sometimes I'm just sitting and thinking about it. I'm like, how did this all happen? Like Connor fighting Nate Diaz for the first time, like that was never supposed to happen, and that sprung like this kind of
Magic.
these guys becoming superstars, and Masvidal and all these guys coming up. It was all because of that. And it's like crazy. What if that didn't even happen, where the sport would be? So it's so crazy to watch and
So, I mean,
love
speaking
it.
of the bantamweight division,
Yep.
what do you think about this Saturday's main event? Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw. TJ Dillashaw, of course, returning from his lengthy suspension.
Yeah.
I really think that what I've seen from Sandhagen lately, I don't see him losing this fight.
Yeah.
I think that he would really have to be thrown off by something TJ does. TJ would have to bum rush, but Corey Sandhagen just has such good body control.
Yeah.
Even when he's jumping around and spinning in circles, his knee lands exactly where he wants with knockout power.
Yeah. For sure. No, that I'm so excited for this fight this weekend. And my personal take on it is, I think obviously the layoff is one thing, but I think TJ is such a competitor that he's been probably pushing in the gym that's not going to be the biggest issue. It's more the attributes of Corey, like the length because on the like skill wise, they're pretty similar. Like, you know, in terms of like their striking, I think the attributes is the biggest factor. So I think it would be smart. I think, and this is what I think will happen is TJ will look to wrestle him early, try to put him down and just kind of take some energy out of him, you know, like follow the blueprint that Aljo went with, is like, put him down, try to just maul him a little bit. So then when it comes back to the feet, he's not as explosive and dangerous. And because those attributes are like at 135, he's so goddamn long, and like he could flying knees, spinning wheel kicks, all that stuff that, you know, and TJ is not that, he's a short guy. So it's like, it's going to be a good fight, man. I can't wait. 5 rounds too. Holy shit.
He's got the big height advantage and reach advantage. And, you know, that is that you know, it means very different things to different fighters. Stefan Struve had a reach advantage in almost every fight he ever fought.
Still got knocked out because he was,
but Sandhagen uses his reach, you know, as a way not only to keep them at a distance where he still has really good power, but he also uses that reach advantage to, you know, go forward and to initiate offense.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, these guys have trained together too. So that's what always makes it interesting, knowing that like what happened when they sparred, who knows what about the other guy. So I think you're going to see the best of both guys trying to compete in there. And man, I can't even predict that fight, to be honest. But if I had to say one thing, it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if Sandhagen knocks him out or finishes him.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, this is a really tough draw for Corey too, because I thought he deserved a title shot after beating Frankie.
Me too.
That fight broke my heart, dude. I love Frankie.
How dare you, Corey Sandhagen, do that to Frankie?
He was in tears, man, after the fight. He was like, at the same time, you know, that's Frankie Edgar out there. I was tearing up.
Yeah, that was, anytime Frankie's one of the good guys in MMA. Anytime he gets knocked out, I'm not happy. Let's put it that way. And after seeing him do that, I was like, all right.
Yeah, it was like I was heartbroken, but at the same time, I was like, oh my God. I was sold that night that I think Corey Sandhagen is currently the best guy at 135. And, you know, to then get over that hump and, you know, have after Marlon Moraes and Frankie, and then, all right, one last thing, the 2-time bantamweight champion that has had 2 years off, and you have no idea what to expect, you know, other than the fighter he was previously.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. TJ's an animal too, and not making that cut to 25. It's like, I think he can go in there and, you know, remind a lot of people who he is. And I think it's just gonna be a good fight. Like, it's so hard to predict that one, to be honest.
Yeah, you know, I don't like TJ, you know, I don't like his personality, but, you know, my God, not only has he beaten some of the best guys ever at 135, he also pulled off one of the biggest odds on upsets of all time.
Yeah.
That's just a different competitive quality. He's an animal.
Yeah, you got to respect the competitor. Even if you don't like the personality, you got to respect the competitor. Like, I just remember watching, like, even in I think it was the first Cody fight when he got dropped, like, you see him get up, going to the stool, and he's like hitting himself, like, come on. And it's like, a lot of guys don't react like that after getting dropped and put down and almost finished. Like, he was like, you know, like, you could see he was so competitive that he's like, no, like, I ain't going out like this, and like trying to wake himself up. And I'm like, damn, like, that dude's in there to compete and he ain't going to quit, you know, like, so I think like I'd like to see this fight play out over 5 rounds and just see who wants it more and see what happens.
Yeah. TJ, oh my God, like, he's so competitive that he has ended people's careers because of how competitive he trains. You know, that was one of the stories that Cody Garbrandt and Uriah Faber told, you know, after the whole Team Alpha Male beef started.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't like that at all. I don't think, like, your training partners you're supposed to take care of. You know, you need your training partners, and they're helping you get ready for fights. You can't be doing ridiculous stuff like that, illegal shots, anything like that, or even just trying to hurt guys. Like, I know you need a certain intensity when you're training for a fight, but at the end of the day too, it's like, you gotta, it's training, right? You can't be trying to put guys away and hurt them as badly as possible. It's not what you do. But
yeah, it's crazy about some fighters. You know, sometimes the competitive drive that it takes to reach the pinnacle of your weight class, you know, it has other lingering negative effects. It's like, if a football player, I mean, the Bengals, who that's my team, have had several where it's like they're really great competitors and like dangerous defensive players, but like that same quality makes them like push a guy and punch him after the down. And it's like, well, now that's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's true. Like these guys, like you're so competitive that you're going to do anything to win. And like, that's why I love fighting is like, you see all sports, like football, even NASCAR is not even like, I guess you call that a sport, but like anything like that. Anytime they get mad and people get frustrated, they always go back. It always comes back to fight. You guys try to fight each other because it's like the ultimate competition, man to man. Like, I'm going to kick your ass. What are you going to do about it? And you see it in every sport. Like if they get mad enough, they fight. So it's like fighting is the purest of pure. It's just a fight.
Yeah, you at least in the fights that the video I've seen of you have a pretty brash style, when stuff gets mixed up too. There's the point in your last fight where you were kind of walking forward with like your chest out and your arms down, and then the breakdown you were like going forward with my hands down, not sure why I'm doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the
it's
ego
a crowd
there.
friendly style, you're motioning when you're getting hit, you motion when he gets hit. It's fun to watch, but it adds to the fight. It's not a distraction at all. It's a part of it.
Yeah. It's like at the end of the day too, it's like you're an entertainer when you fight. And I always want to, like, at the end of the day, I want to win more than anything and get in there and finish guys. But at the same time too, it's like, I'm there to entertain, and like for me getting in there, this shit's fun. Like, when someone hits me, I'm like, all right, let's go, like, give him a little smile, shake it off, you hit him, you point at him, like it's just, making it fun for the crowd, fun and just fun for myself. When I'm in there and enjoying myself, I feel like I'm the most dangerous. So if I'm in there and, guys hit me and you get all timid, it's like, that shit ain't fun. So it's like, if I'm going to be in there getting hit, I might as well have fun.
Yeah, it's like some fighters approach it like they put all this pressure on their shoulders. Like, I've got my camp behind me, my family, my friend, my hometown. I can't let them down. And then, there's some people that are like, all right, let's get in there. Let's have fun, let's take it where it goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a healthy balance of both. There's always going to be a little bit of pressure there to perform and, be at your best. But at the end of the day, your team, your family, everyone is like, they're still gonna be there the day after the fight. They're still gonna love you, win, lose, or draw. So I don't really think about that at all. It's just, go in there and perform, do your best. And, you could live with yourself. If you go in there and you fight to the best of my ability, and if it's not enough, then, at least I could live with myself.
Yeah, and it's not boxing where it is imperative that you stay undefeated. People lose a lot in this sport. People lose 4 in a row and then go on to be dominant UFC champions. It's a really long haul sport. I mean, we're arguably seeing Glover Teixeira at the best he's ever been at like 42 years old.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's just a different sport, and that's the way it should be. Like, one loss shouldn't take away from what you're capable of, like, if people are going to lose every single fight card, there's a bunch of winners and there's a bunch of losers, and like some of the best guys in the world lose their pro debut and go on to be great champions. So it's like, and I love, that's what I love about this sport too, is like people need to appreciate the guys that go in there and give it their all and lose, like it's not just all about the winners. The losers should get the respect of everyone as well. And I think the crowds do respect the people that go in there and go to war. And even if you lose a decision, get knocked out, stuff like that. Whereas some other sports like boxing, all that, it's all about the winner, the guy with the perfect record. They bring in all these guys to lose, they're brought in to lose. So.
That's one of the things that I think still to me puts GSP above Kamaru Usman for a bit as the best welterweight and possibly the greatest UFC champion of all time, is that the losses that he took early to Matt Hughes and Matt Serra, those elevated him to a different level. And we saw because he came up, beat Matt Hughes 2 straight and eventually lost to Matt Serra, and he was a completely different fighter mentally, mostly mentally, but I mean such a physical talent. But I think those losses really elevated him.
Yeah, GSP wouldn't be the GSP GOAT we know without those losses. I don't think if he was just winning, it's like, he could have just been scraping by, but you've seen him elevate, and that's what losses should do. And, that's what you should be doing in the gym, like you're going in, training, you have a bad day, you get caught with something, you come back and you constantly keep adjusting and just become a better version of yourself. And there's no better place to learn than in an actual fight. So if you take a tough loss, it's not the end of the world. Just back on the horse, back to work, and just be a better version of yourself. And that's what you see, like all these greats, everyone's lost. Max Holloway, you name it, all these champions have lost, pretty much except Khabib. Everyone's suffered some type of loss. So
freaking Khabib, man.
Yeah, that's crazy, eh? 29-0. How's that even possible? Like in a sport like this, like that's why it's so, like, you got to respect
in
that.
the UFC lightweight division.
Yeah. To see what Poirier's done now too, and like to see, like, obviously he beat Conor, but to see what Poirier and Gaethje, like the level of those guys and how good Dustin Poirier is, and to see Khabib what he did to him, like that's absolutely insane. Would have loved to see him stay around a little longer, but
oh yeah, he really left at the time where we really wanted more than ever before.
yeah.
And now he's the greatest. He might be the best coach in the game.
Yeah, he's a great coach. And I think it was smart for him to leave when he did, because in this sport, it's like someone's going to get you eventually. You rematch Dustin Poirier, he catches you. Charles Oliveira is dangerous on the ground. There's so many variables that, like, if you just keep fighting, it's like someone's going to get you eventually. So to get out and become a coach like he is, I think it was a smart decision. And, I don't think anyone.
Possibly the best UFC career of any fighter ever, and took very little head damage.
Yeah, like virtually none. Like barely got rocked. Like, you're gonna eat some punches, but like, yeah, like he's out and he's got his brain and now he's rich. That's the goal, man. Who doesn't want to get out of there with their brain and some money and fame? That's the goal.
And limitless respect. He will always he will always be held in that Rocky Marciano, of like, well, it's like nobody ever beat this guy, so why would we think that someone now would?
Exactly, right? And that's like, he's one of those guys that's like everyone wants to fight like him too, after seeing how dominant he was. It's like, even when you watch the fights on the weekends, you hear the broadcast, how many times they bring him up. Like someone grabs wrist control and they're like, oh, could be, like, they bring him up so much just from what he's done, and the way guys are just there. So many guys are doing the leg pin that he would do, like trapping the legs, and just they're literally just stealing his style, which is great because it just makes MMA better. It just makes the fighters better. And
okay, so one last thing that I
sure.
wanted to ask you is, during your fight breakdown video, you said there were some things that you were happy with your performance. There were some things that you didn't think you did really well.
Yeah.
So what do you perceive as currently the biggest weakness in your game, and why, what are you doing to address it moving towards your professional debut?
That's a good question. I'd have to think about that, because honestly, like there were some things to do with striking, little things in grappling that I felt like I needed to work on, but honestly, I've worked on them a lot. And the thing I wasn't happy with that in fight, I just felt like I was a little too laid back, having a little bit too much fun, not as focused and serious. And I, like, when I watch it back, it's like I can't even watch it because I'm like, I'm not even close to the same fighter. And I just think I need to put more pressure on guys and be a little bit more in their face with more volume. And I just think I was being a little too calculated, which isn't always a bad thing. But I mean, I felt like I could have got that guy out of there in the first round, and I kind of just took it slower. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that I've been working on, is coming out the gate faster. Cause I feel like I've always been a slow starter in wrestling as well. I was kind of like, it takes me a while to get going, but once I get going, oh, I'm going, you know what I mean? But so for me, that was one of the bigger weaknesses, is like, I felt like I'm kind of asleep for a bit in some fights, like I was just kind of just out there, just kind of, oh yeah. And then once I get going, it's good. But I found that can be a big weakness to some fighters, because you can get knocked out real fast. If someone comes out hot and you're sleeping, you're going to be sleeping. So like, I've been trying to focus on coming out more aggressive and being ready to go right away. like immediately, not in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, second round, things like that.
All right, Devon, before we wrap up today, where can people follow you on social media? And is there anybody you want to shout out? Any sponsors or any, anybody you want to shout out? Floor is yours, whatever you want to say.
So you can follow me on Instagram at DALOZEJ, just my last name, DALOZEJ. You could search me up on Instagram. I like to post a lot of stuff, training stuff, all that kind of stuff. So follow me on there. And I just want to shout out my coach, Matt Riche, in the gym at Leading Edge here. We're on the come up here, and I'm excited to get back in there, represent my gym, represent Thunder Bay. So yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate having you on. This has been very informative. We touched a lot of topics. Folks, this has been another interlude episode of RotoBaller's official MMA podcast, Tap That. This has been Brady Grove. You can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. I'll be doing the MMA chat on Saturday. A prelims episode will be coming out later this week. Big thank you to our guest today, Devon the Dream Lozej. You can watch him on August 15th on the BTC pay-per-view stream. And Devon, if you provide me with that link in some way, I will post that along with the link to the show when it comes out. For sure. Yeah, I'll get it your way for sure. Awesome, Matt. Well, really appreciate you. Really appreciate you being here. We got a good conversation then. The time flew by. No, it was good. I had a great time. Folks, have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the card this weekend. Look out for other RotoBaller MMA content throughout the week.